Hi, and welcome to Career Mobility with James Mcilvena. It is February 2023, James. How are you?
I am doing exceedingly well, thanks, TJ. I had a nice break over Christmas with family, was back for a couple of weeks, then got to spend a bit of time in Japan for a week. So I feel like I've taken a bit of leave and come back refreshed and ready to go.
Fabulous stuff in the powder snow. Very nice.
It was very nice.
Now, today we're going to talk about something which I think will be very interesting to the audience here. So we're going to talk about the benefits of roles in 2023. You and I have been having some conversations about this, and I think the audience will be really interested in how things have changed, because benefits used to be very much associated with the financial upside of a role. We think there's been some changes as a result of COVID and as we move into 2023. So I'd love to get your take on this, James, and really share what you've been seeing.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think it's not a new concept for us to be talking about total REM packages.
Yeah.
So remuneration for quite a while has been viewed by some as just the salary number, up to and including the fact that they don't even look into simple things like, is the super guarantee contribution at standard or extra, and where are you at, and what's your future savings plan? What stage of your career are you? How important is, retirement savings to you? So that's just the most basic of it, and that's been around forever and a day. And I remember from a long time ago negotiating salary packages with people, and they're about to walk out the door from an opportunity that they thought was the right opportunity for them, but they would say, oh, look, I've got an extra $10,000 offered over here, for option B. Yeah. Is that the job you'd like to do? Not really, but $10,000. So we'll break it down. It's like $192 a week, over the space of a year, right? And then what's your potential for growth in that role versus the role you're currently doing? And so, but now, to your question, post-COVID, there is just so much more. When you're considering total REM, it's down to flexibility, it's down to the culture of the workforce, it's down to, there are a whole bunch of benefits that employers offer now that they haven't previously, and some they don't even articulate very well, particularly things where there's insurance cover for you, there's benefits around travel, there's extra leave provisions, there's flexibility, there's great maternity and paternity leave offers. Total REM is about understanding. It's so individual. It's about understanding with an employer exactly the total package of what that employer means. And I think what needs to stay central to this stuff is all those other things might be numbers, but the number one determining factor, in my view, should always be, the role, the opportunity, the level of interest that it's got, because I see way too many people leave roles they don't like with buyer's remorse because they went for salary over something much more meaningful, which is the people, the culture, the challenge in the role, and actually what it means as a total package.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we've spoken a bit about obviously companies want to be profitable. So of course they'll be looking at having, particular packages and, potential structures around these, these packages for total REM and so on. But at the end of the day, productivity comes from really enjoying what you do. And if you're not inspired by the role that you're in, then potentially you're not going to put your best foot forward, and it's not going to lead to the growth that you're looking for in your career.
Yeah, I mean, the old shows my age. I remember studying in school was the Merchant of Venice, where it's that Shakespearean thing around the pound of flesh, right? And so I've just seen over a very long career that something that actually comes with a huge amount of reward, particularly on the salary side of things, also often comes with huge expectation. And it's to the point you just made. It's that every business is looking to pay for role and pay mark to market and what value they expect and need to extract from that role. And so it really is, I come back to what I said before, it really is a very individual choice, right? No one person. People can be a great sounding board. Career coaches can be an amazing sounding board as to what your considerations are. But I mean, ultimately, it's a very personal decision around what stage of life you're at, what's important to you. No one can make that decision, that final decision as to what's in your best interest other than the individual themselves. What they can do better is take some advice to make a really good pros, cons, and really observe the total of what it is that they should be considering rather than getting blinded by a singular number, that being a salary.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, one of the things that we're seeing so often discussed, and obviously something that's very close to my heart as a wellbeing ambassador, is the wellbeing of individuals. And again, you know, if people are aligned with the role that they've taken, and of course, you know, you want to feel valued for the work that you do and have that sort of reward from a financial perspective, but there are so many other benefits, I think, that have emerged as a result of COVID and, you know, the opportunities within workforces and culture. Culture has changed within businesses. And again, it's something that we've been talking about. But again, I'd love to get your take on some of the things that you've been hearing recently. I know you've been talking, you know, at various events and things, and you've got events coming up. So I'd love to hear a bit about the thought behind that and, you know, how it differs for different workers.
Yeah. Look, I think there's two main trends or points of discussion I'm seeing appear. And we also had a Global Workforce of the Future report release. So we've actually got a lot of metrics that sit behind this at the moment as well. And trend number one is people more than ever are feeling an increase when it comes to pressure around cost of living and maintaining a certain standard of living. And so that doesn't matter whether you're paying more rent, whether your mortgage has gone up, whether just the price you pay for your basics is increasing, because we're all very aware, or anyone who watches the news or The Economist is really aware of inflationary pressure and what that's doing at the moment. So why I say that in answer to your question is you have people at the moment who are more than ever seeing that the money side of things is increasingly important to them because they want to maintain their standard of living. Almost everyone, you know, comes at it from the angle of I want to maintain my standard of living. Now, the second part from these discussions is, as you've just said, right, being a wellbeing ambassador is critical. So this is the bit that I have really liked about post-COVID. This is the bit I really liked about the way different employers and different employers have different viewpoints on this, absolutely, have looked at, you know, hybrid working and some of those things. And the wellbeing component cannot be overlooked, you know, and mostly because of the fact that I touched on a little bit before, but as an individual, you've got to make a decision around what works in and around your lifestyle. And part of that is actually an understanding of what the demands of the role are going to be, where you'll be doing that work from, how much you'll collaborate and what the culture is when it comes to collaborating. So if you're a person that being around other people is critically important to you, but you go and work for an organization where the only people you'll ever meet are on the other end of a Teams or a Zoom call, that's something you got to factor in. And so for some people that might be perfect and it might work just fine for them, but for others, they'll hate it. Particularly we're seeing, I was mentioning to you before we started this, we're seeing a trend, particularly for younger workers who are entering the workforce, where they want the opportunity to be in and around people so they can actually learn from people who are more experienced than them. And they don't feel that they get that on the end of a series of video calls. So there is no definite answer here, but of those two key concepts, it's like one is actually considering the overall well-being. And I get the fact that people want to maintain a standard of living, and that's absolutely important. It's important to me personally as well. But really thinking that financial is only one component in an overall standard of living, and time spent with family, time spent with children, time spent pursuing passions, any of those things that are important to you do need to be factored into that. And then the second thing is exactly what is the culture that you're entering into. And I think it used to be the old, you could almost expect the question at the end of any interview would be, so what's the culture like here, right? And I've said to people for years and years and years, it's always insufficient to ask someone else to describe their culture and then take that answer on face value. If you haven't delved into actually what it looks like, where you'll be working from. Actually, ask, if you don't know anyone at their company, ask to actually speak to other people there. Ask to speak to your colleagues and have an informal catch up with them, either virtual or in person, before you actually start the role. Like, do some real, what corporate social responsibility things are they interested in? Like, these are the little things that can actually tell you a huge amount. And it's got to go a lot further for you to be happy once you arrive than just asking a question at the end of an interview around getting someone who's trying to sell you a job to describe their culture.
Look, it's a absolutely such an important point, and I think that the thing is, companies' cultures are a creation at the end of the day. You know, it's many factors that make that up, and a lot of companies are going through a reinvention right now as well. So what used to be a company culture of a particular organisation may have changed quite radically since COVID. So it's definitely worth digging into those things and really finding out what's current. You know, companies that have, you know, during COVID gone into co-working spaces, perhaps going back into, you know, an office space that's dedicated to them. All of those things cause different opportunities within the culture. So I think there's a lot going on in companies right now, and definitely something worth, you know, being very aware of. And as you say, asking all of those great questions for.
Yeah, I mean, look, my belief has always been, you know, culture is just the sum total of the behaviours of the people within the company. And that's the best definition I've heard or come across when it comes to culture. It's like, the culture is the sum of the behaviours you witness from the people who are part of that business. And to the point you're making, it's been through a change. You know, you cannot, like, the way people work, how they interact, how they hold meetings. There've been some positives and there've been some things that people miss from the way it used to be. So I think more than ever, actually, the understanding current state versus taking on face value or an assumption of what a place was like to work at previously. I think doing a new, fresh, frank and thorough assessment on exactly what you're going to experience is the only way to avoid that buyer's remorse of getting there and thinking, oh gosh, you know, because then you get into this trap, and I've seen it happen to people way too many times. They get in this trap of, oh gosh, well, now I'm here and it'll look bad if I leave within 6 months. I've kind of stuck here for 2 years, so I don't have like a blemish on my employment history record, and I don't want to look like a perennial role jumper. And so it's why it's just so critically. I could think of nothing worse than having to just serve out time in a culture that I did not like, just to hit an artificial deadline in my mind that made it look just good enough to allow me to leave, when it could all be avoided by a much more thorough inspection during the selection process, not jumping at things. And I get there are always pressures and reasons why people accept roles and feel like, you know, their timeline on needing to land something is running thin. So just that little bit extra time, a little bit of extra investigation can yield a whole lot of benefit.
Absolutely. And so just to wrap up, I mean, benefits in 2023, it's a very interesting subject. We might come back to this a bit later in the year and see sort of what's materializing, what we're seeing. But have a fantastic month, and definitely look forward to seeing you in March to see what you've been up to.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, TJ.
Look forward to seeing you then. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks. Bye.